Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I am your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an awesome episode. We're going to be talking about mindset. We're going to be talking about how to overcome obstacles. We're going to be talking about how to live your life the best you can. We're also going to talk about building your team because I did a post the other day and it said, if you want to go fast, run by yourself. If you want to go far, build a team. And one of our team members is a close friend of mine. Me and Steven Eugene Kuhn have been friends now, probably going on about 8 years. Guys, if you don't know Steven Eugene Kuhn, amazing dude. Him and his partner, older partner, wrote an amazing book, and we'll talk about that later. So, guys, if you don't know Steven Eugene Kuhn, when you get off here, make sure you Google him, get in touch with him. Without Steven, we wouldn't be in touch today. So I want to say thank you, Steven, and thank you for setting me straight a couple years ago. Without you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. My brother Joshua is a Navy veteran, speaker, coach. He's a Swiss Army knife of positivity. Amazing dude. Joshua, my brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate the invite, and I'm thankful that and grateful that Steven connected me and you together. So it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be just here in general, let alone on your podcast.
I love it. And guys, if you stay till the end, we're going to be offering some tips that you can use today that might save your life. It saved my life about 2 months ago when I almost took myself out. And I'll talk to you about that tip. And also, if you buy the new book, which you'll see up above, for $30 autographed copy, you get over $1,000 in bonuses just for buying the book for $30. So, but Joshua, let me ask you first question before we get started. I do have a traumatic brain injury, so if I don't ask the question, I will forget. What is your definition of resiliency?
That's a great question. I think I don't know. I'm trying not to get emotional when I answer this. It's not quitting on yourself. It's not quitting on going an extra day. It's not quitting on doing that next thing to overcome the situation you're in. And it's pushing through to get on the other side. And for both of us, the other side can be mean the difference between life and death. So I think resiliency means a lot to me because I couldn't be here today without it. And that's a legitimate answer, just like you.
And like my friend Ed Milet wrote an amazing book talking about just one more. Maybe that's just one more minute. Maybe I'm in recovery 35 years. Maybe it's just one more hour of staying sober, or just one more hour of saying, I can kill myself tomorrow. I'm just not going to do it today.
Absolutely.
So, just one more. So tell us a little bit about, because if people see you now, they wouldn't be seeing the same guy that was from February 2023. They wouldn't see the positive guy. They wouldn't see the guy that has an amazing Facebook group, a guy that's changing the world. But your life hasn't always been sunshine, Skittles, and rainbows and unicorns. So tell us a little bit about where you come from, where did you grow up, and how did this all start?
I appreciate you asking that question. So I grew up in a small town in Tennessee called Crossville. It's nestled on I-40 between Knoxville and Nashville. Yep. Maybe 6,000 to 7,000 people growing up. My graduating class had 300 people. So, but
Tennessee Volunteers, baby. Tennessee Volunteers.
Right. Yeah, we just won the national championship in baseball. That was huge. But there's not a whole lot to do in Crossville, Tennessee. You can work at the ceramic plant, or you can work at a local rubber plant, or you can do construction. And I didn't want to do those things. And when I graduated high school, I went to community college. I played sports in high school, but I didn't dedicate myself like I should have. So I didn't get any scholarship offers. So So I was pissed about that for one. And I only have myself to blame and not anybody else. But I went to community college for a year, and I got kind of tired of doing that. And I decided to go join the Navy. Well, when I went to the Navy recruiter, I was 315 pounds. So I didn't qualify. And, he stood there and he said, you're never going to make it in the Navy. I'm like, what would I have to do to make it in the Navy? And he said, well, you got to get down to at least 22% body fat, or you have to get down to, I think 196 or 201 was my max weight. And I said, okay, well, is that it? He's like, yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, you have the qualifying ASVAB score and medically you're fine, but you're not going to lose the weight to get in. I'm like, okay. So I went back that day and I started running, and I ran and I ran and I ran. And, the first day I ran a lap, second day I ran 2 laps, and it went on from there. I was running 2-3 times a day with trash bags, sweatpants, anything I could in the middle of summer. And 4.5 months later, I went back in the recruiting office, and he couldn't believe it was me. I was down to 21% body fat, and it started there. So I kind of thrive in situations when people tell me I can't do something. Because I have to prove to myself that I can do it. It doesn't have anything to do with what they say. It's proven to myself that I can do it. Anyway, I joined the Navy.
Well, a lot of people don't know that I'm a closet Tennessee Vols fan because I love T. Martin. I love Peyton, but I actually helped Jared G. get ready to be the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, Tennessee Volunteers. I actually helped him get physically ready to be starting quarterback with Volunteers. So I'm a big Volunteers guy. I got all my Volunteers swag upstairs. So let's talk about the Navy, because if your GT score was that high or ASVAB and you were in shape, you would probably had picked from all 4. You could have went to any one. Why Navy?
So my grandmother, it wasn't my grandpa, it was like my step grandpa. She remarried a man, and he was in the Navy, and he told me, growing up, he kept telling me these stories about where he'd been and what he did. And I just wanted to travel. And it had a better, the recruiter just basically told me, he's like, you're going to have more options technically when you get out of the service. And I'm like, well, I plan on doing this for 20 years. I don't really care about that. So I narrowed it down between the Marine Corps and the Navy, and I decided to go with the Navy. And, when I went to join, they told me, you can do whatever you want. You can. It's like, let's see if you want to go on nuclear submarines. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go on a submarine. I don't want to be underwater. So they gave me the option of advanced electronic computer field, and it narrowed down into fire controlman. They like, you can either work on electronics or you can blow shit up. And I was like, I want to blow shit up. So I got to be a fire controlman. So I did ballistic missile defense in the Navy for just over 20 years.
So you did 20 years in the Navy.
Yes, sir.
So now we're going to talk about some hard stuff because, I did 23 until I got hurt, and you can't see, you can't shoot. We don't need you. Well,
yep.
For the last 23 years, I've been Sergeant Kaufman. I've been doing everything I can to be the ultimate soldier. Now I'm no longer that thing. I'm no longer that rank. I'm no longer Sergeant Kaufman. And they finally medically retired me. So I know you did 20, but you also had to deal with some shit, the 6 inches between our ears. We dealt with a lot of PTSD and stuff like that. So talk to us about the start of PTSD.
Sure. So I did 7 ships and 7 deployments in my 20 years. I only had 1 shore duty, and that was recruiting. That's not really shore duty. That's like being underway while you're on shore. But I had a high op tempo my entire time in the service. And one day I went into work when my last ship, Homeport, shifted to Mayport, and I had a complete breakdown in my workspace. I don't know where it came from. It just all of a sudden hit me like a ton of bricks, and I couldn't think about anything but jumping off the ship and not coming back. So they referred me to mental health, And initially what they did is they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, which later on was not the right diagnosis. So they put me on a bunch of medicine that if you're not bipolar, it turns you bipolar. So I started spiraling out of control in a downward way. And not only that, I was an alcoholic. I was addicted to, if you could be addicted to it and still be in the military, then I was pretty much addicted to it. Pornography, alcohol, anything to fill the hole that was inside me, which I found later on, we'll talk about, wasn't actually there. But anyway, I started dealing with all those addictions and them telling me that, you can't be bipolar and be operational in the military. You just can't do it. So I was on med hold for about, I think, 18 months when they finally came back and said that, you're done. You're gonna be medically separated, but you're over 20, so you're gonna get full retirement, and you're gonna get full disabled veteran benefits. I didn't want that. I wanted to stay in for 30. I was trying to make CW05, one of the unicorns in the Navy. There's like 63 of them right now. So I was Chief Warrant Officer 3 Danson, September 2020. I had no clue what I was going to do. And after I got out, they had re-diagnosed me properly with severe PTSD, depression, anxiety, and adult ADHD. And my psychiatrist said, these things all together can mirror what some people think bipolar disorder can be. So she got me straightened out on all my meds, which helped, but I was still totally effed in the head. I was still drinking and doing all the stuff that is not healthy, is not a healthy way to cope. And as part of that, some things happened in my personal life that really got me severely depressed. This is after they straightened me out on all my medicine. And I spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. I went and enrolled in college because thinking something like, getting my degree and having a reputable skill besides working for the Navy would be something that pulled me out of it. Well, I went and got my degree, and that didn't change anything. It actually made it worse because I was trying to feel something externally that you can only feel internally. And that's the problem a lot of people that I've seen a lot of people go through is you can try to, or you can attempt to fill your life or your soul with things external to yourself. And the answer is inside, and it will be inside of you forever. You just have to stop playing the victim and look where you should look to find the answer. And then,
right. So let's talk about, because, I think my show is one of the only shows that I know of. Well, we don't really tell war stories because that's not what I do. I leave that to Jocko. Right. Jocko's great at that. I'm not good at that. But, military, first responders, we see and we do shit that no normal human being should ever see or do. And we have to deal with something called moral injury. And, I've had a lot of helicopter pilots on the show, and they're like, I didn't see any of the people that I took out, but I'm still dealing with moral injury. And I don't really hear it talked about much. So what do you think was some of the starting of your post-traumatic stress?
I think because my op tempo had slowed down. We were a brand new ship. We weren't slated to go on deployment for a while. We were still going through certifications for commissioning process. So I think what happened is my body got addicted to stress, right? A certain level of stress. And this is a real life thing, especially for active duty service members with our op tempo. We get addicted to the stress. We get addicted to our own hormones of cortisol and adrenaline. And when that's not there, your brain starts to go, what the F is going on? We're in a shitstorm now. We don't know what to do. And that's when it starts. The actual chaos of not being there is what drove me into the PTSD.
All right, so let's talk about that, because me and Kuhn were both tankers. So, we like to hear the boom. I like to hear the
Yeah.
105. And when I got out, all right, here I'm an ex-tank commander with my own platoon, and my friends want to go out. They're like, "Hey, you want to go shoot the 9mm?" I'm like, "Yeah, no." I'm like, I had nothing to fill my soul because I wasn't getting that adrenaline fix, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So if you want to fill your soul, what do? Do you go to drugs? Do you go to alcohol? Do you go to sex to try to fill that void? Because once you get used to being an adrenaline junkie and you go home just to be the normal 9 to 5 guy, that's a big mind fuck.
Oh,
right?
yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. I was trying to basically numb myself with the alcohol, and then with the sex and the pornography. I was trying to create some kind of stimulation external to fill that hole, which, like I said, you're never going to fill it with some external source, because I was in charge of 115 sailors, a combat systems weapons department. I was a systems test officer on a destroyer. I was in charge of every weapon on the ship. I was in charge of every round, every missile, every radar. It was mine. And when that stops, I had no purpose in my mind. In my mind, I'm like, I'm Josh Danson. What does that mean? I had a big void of 20 plus years of service to fill with nothing, because I've used all this external shit to try and fill the hole of the adrenaline and the stress, I think. And it tore me down. It broke me down like a shotgun, so to speak. So
So let's talk about that, because and I think we're up to like 1,500 interviews, something like that. And everybody I've talked to, whether you're a veteran, first responder, athlete, when you're first signing up for whatever that thing is, they never tell you, Joshua, you have a shelf life. You need to start preparing now. And when I was young, I joined at 17, so I was young, dumb, and full of cum. And I'm like, this is never going to end. I'm just going to be a badass for the rest of my life. And then
that's
one
right.
day when they hand me my ID, retired ID, and say, "Well, you're no longer Sergeant Kaufman," and then you have to reimagine and reinvent your life. And that's when I attempted suicide, Labor Day 2012. Talk to us about what it's like to no longer be that thing that you've done for the last 20 or something years.
It left such a hole in my life that I had no will to get up and do anything. Like, I just wanted to watch TV, sit on the couch, anything but to be productive, because I wouldn't even drive. I would not even drive near the military base, because I felt so ashamed about my situation that I got medically retired from something that I put so much of myself into. And I don't know, I feel like it ripped my heart and my soul right out of my body, because when you wake up and you don't put the uniform on and it's hanging there in your closet and you can't do anything about it, those feelings of inadequacy start to come up, because of all the external factors that you've had for the last 20 plus years. And I was an athlete before that. So I played sports from the time I was 6 until I graduated high school, went to college, and then I was in the military. So I had always had something to fill that made me who I was, right? I was a football player. I was a basketball player, some title or some attachment to what I was. So I think it goes back even further than when I was in the military, back to when I was a kid, that I had always identified as something besides Joshua Danson. And whenever I had to identify as Joshua Danson, I didn't know how to do it.
Okay, so then, no matter if you put in 2 years, 20 years, like a friend of mine in our group, Sergeant Nick, talks about, once you step off base or step off the ship, military doesn't give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing. Some of us, we didn't do 20 years, so some of us don't get pensions. We don't have a mission anymore. We don't have the camaraderie. And a lot of us either end up looking at the bottom of a bottle or at the end of a barrel, or sometimes both.
Or both. Yep.
So, talk to us, because like a lot of people think, oh, well, you got out of the military and the world's going to open up to you. Most of the time, you're nothing when you hit the streets, and that's why we'll talk about how to prepare on LinkedIn and stuff. We'll talk about that later. But, talk to us what it's like. Is I had rose-colored glasses. I'm like, great, I'm getting out of the military with 23 years. The world's going to open up to me, and the world slapped the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So talk to us about what that's like when you get out and having to become Private Joe fucking Snuffy and having to start out at the bottom again.
Yeah, well, you're not even Private Joe Snuffy. You're Josh, and you're no longer part of the 3 million people in the military that mean somebody. You become part of that 7.8 billion people that nobody knows about, right? So you step into a world where people don't give a shit that you served in the military. Sure, they come up and say thank you for your service, and I really appreciate people that do that. Sometimes I would like civilians to ask how veterans are doing, because that means something to us, right? Especially me and you and anybody that's dealt with some of the things we've dealt with. It should mean something to everybody. But you step out of that role that you because that's what you've been. You've been a role, and that's what you identify with. And nobody gives a shit about who you are or what you did or how many deployments you went on or how many sailors you mentored or led or, how many awards you got. That shit don't mean nothing in the civilian world. You start from the bottom at 40. When you start from the bottom at 40, I was 40 whenever I started again, right? You're like, what the shit is this? Like, I got out to do this again? And it just kind of punches you right in the face. And so you don't have that community. You don't have that community to identify with. You don't have people that you can talk to about this stuff because they're still in the service. They're like, oh, shit, Josh is gone. And I hope he's okay. And they don't – it's almost like with athletes, if somebody gets hurt, they kind of let them heal on their own and they don't, talk to them. Well, with us, that time – it just is longer and longer because our hurt is permanent. We don't get that contact back. And I felt so alone and not alone at the same time because I was surrounded by people. Like I went to school, right? And they're like, they had no clue who I was. And I was, a freshman in college at 40 years old. Like, what is my purpose? I didn't feel like I had one.
And unfortunately, the people around us that don't know the military, they don't understand. It's not their fault. They just
no, it's not. Absolutely not.
Like you have an amazing bride. I have an amazing bride. And my bride didn't realize what I was going through until we went to go see American Sniper. And when Chris is sitting there watching a blank TV, it's my wife turned to me and says, I get it. Now I get it. Now I understand. And by the way, that's why I wear this hat is I promised Chris Kyle's wife that on any podcast I ever go on, I'm going to wear a hat in honor of Chris. So that's why I wear the hat.
Yes, sir.
And it's a hard thing when, like, I moved to New Jersey with my wife, and I'm still have military tendencies. Like we were walking through Times Square when I first moved here, and I'm like, "That's a good choke point. That's a good choke." Or I can't sit my back against people walking in. You're hyper.
Where are the exits? Where are the entrances?
Or you start counting people, or you're very hyper focused. You're listening to everybody's conversation around you, and if you don't know about a civilian world, people they don't think twice about it. And it's not their fault. It's just they don't know how we've been trained. And it's hard to just stop when you're driving, not looking for roadside bombs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, or any threat whatsoever in any place that you ever go into. When me and my wife started dating, she hadn't been around the military, right? We got married in 2017. We started dating in 2016. She asked me, like, the first time we went into a restaurant, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Why are you looking at everybody? You're looking at the exit. You're looking at the entrance. Why do you like want to sit with your back against the wall?" I'm like, so I explained to her, everything in our mind is a threat because that's what we're trained to look for, right? And you just do that stuff automatically. Everywhere you go, automatically. It's just something that you're programmed to do. And like you said, it's not civilians' fault. They don't understand, but it's just, and then when you become a civilian, it kind of even gets worse. For me, it did to a certain point. I'm not there anymore because of all the deconditioning that I did. But
then it all goes back to the adrenaline thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
For a while, I was a corrections officer. So now I'm military and corrections. And now when I go sit at a table in a restaurant, I can't help but listening to every single conversation that's going on in all the tables around me. And I'll lean over my wife and like, that couple, they're getting a divorce. And I'll be like, that couple, they're on their first date. And she's like, why? I'm like, I don't know. It's just something that I can't let go of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my wife would be like, "Honey, I'm right here and I'm doing this," right? Just like checking everything, listening to everything, which, comes into the adult ADHD thing that they finally figured out. And she's like, let's be right here right now. Let's be right here right now. And she would continue to do that. And finally it stuck. Like, be present and we'll talk about some of the stuff that I learned on my journey. But learning how to be present when you're not present for so long was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because I'm thinking about all these existential threats that aren't even there. Like, my fight or flight response is at 11. And the most threatening thing that could happen is I could choke on a pretzel roll in reality.
Right. All right. So let's I want to talk about because I've been out 12 years now. I got out in 2012. I've been in therapy for 12 years straight. You got out in what, 2020?
September 2020, yes, sir.
Take us from September of 2020 to February 2023. Tell us about that time.
Yeah, we can. This is where the shit hit the fan, so to speak, I guess, for me. So I enrolled in school. I was enrolled in school as I was on terminal leave. So I started school in September, and for exercise science, because I thought, hey, I'm going to be a trainer, start my own gym, open my own gym, do something, productive for society. So I started school, and my drinking got significantly worse. Imagine that, as soon as I retired. And a couple of my friends, we'd been going over to their house every weekend, right? We're pretty close. And this is not the first time that I got drunk and some crazy shit happened. But this was the line in the sand, right? We get to December 5th, 2020. I remember it like it's yesterday. I had drank too much because I was trying to numb myself. And it had ended a friendship. And that was the time my wife's like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot do this drinking, crazy acting, and you turn into the Hulk when you drink too much guy. She's like, you either quit or I'm leaving. And I haven't had a drink of whiskey since that day. So I quit drinking that day, right? Because my wife, I saw her, she told me she's like, this is it. I'm done. And I knew it. I saw it on her face. That was the moment where I knew she was not saying this just to say it. So I quit drinking, right? And there was this big ass hole there that I had to fill, that there was nothing there. So I started getting into lifting weights to fill the hole. So I get addicted to something else, right? I'm addicted to so I'm watching the pornography when my wife's not around, and I start lifting weights, and then I start to find out about steroids, and I start taking steroids in midway through 2021. And, I'm like, I'm going to be strong. I'm going to turn into this, real life Incredible Hulk. And it became unhealthy, right? So when you start shooting more testosterone into your body, you start to act crazier and crazier and crazier, and it really fucks with your head. And the rage got out of control, and I got very unhealthy. I got up to 317, 321 pounds. That's what it was. But I thought I was just all muscle, right? Obviously, you're doing all these steroids, and don't get me wrong, I was built like a tank, but my heart was not healthy. My blood pressure was 200 over 150. I went to get blood because I had so much red blood cells in my body. I couldn't even do that because my blood pressure was so high. So I became very unhealthy with these unhealthy habits, and that led us into 2023 when we bought our house, and I graduated, right? I had finished college, and I couldn't find a job, right? So I felt like I was not serving my purpose as a man. I'm letting my family down, and that kind of culminated into me contemplating suicide in February of 2023. And like I said, all this stuff was not filling my soul with what I needed to fill it with. And I almost ended my life. I had a gun. I was driving back and forth over the Dames Point Bridge in Jacksonville. And if you drive off that, you're not coming back unless God catches you, pretty much. So I was gonna end it for sure with the bullet and the car, because I wasn't coming back. And there's this fleeting voice in my head that said, hey, you promised your wife you'd never be a statistic. You'd never be part of that 22. And it it got louder and louder. And I left the bridge and I came home. And that's the day I decided to change my life.
So
Forever.
okay, well, let's talk about, because I want to talk about no, because this stuff this is real shit. This is real talk. This is not no fluff, no BS. When I got out of the military, I was with GNC for over 30 years. Bodybuilding, powerlifting. I was on DECA. I was on Trend. I was on everything.
Yeah.
Walking around at 270, jacked up, shredded. But then when I quit everything, that body dysmorphia fucked my mind, because I'm used to walking around at 270, shredded and jacked and hanging out with Mr. Olympias and shit. And now I'm walking around at 170 looking like I need a hamburger, I need a sandwich. And it totally fucked with your mind, because when you're taking tests, when you're taking DECA, when you're taking Trend, your test is way out of whack. And then
definitely.
when you come off of it for a while, and sometimes it don't ever come back, your test is in the shitter, and maybe the double digits if you're lucky sometimes. So talk about that, and how your body made the difference between being on all that shit and then coming off all that shit. And now you're struggling physically and mentally because you're not walking around at 320 anymore.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up body dysmorphia, because I've had it ever since I was in high school, because I was fat. I got bullied. Even though I played football, kids are mean, right? When you're in high school, it sucks. People bully you. No matter what, you could be the perfect kid, you're still going to get picked on. Well, mine was my weight, right? So I carried that with me all the way through my life. up until recently. And that's why I got on the steroids, right? I'm like, I'm going to get jacked. I'm going to be shredded. And when I came off of it, my wife is an endocrinology nurse. And she's like, you need to get your hormones tested because you've totally fucked them up with all this stuff. And I went to the doctor and my test was 33. My testosterone was 33, not 333. It was 33. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I've never heard of a number that low. And so, like I said, came off all the shit, started eating healthy, exercising, doing things to make yourself healthy. And when you get that low, you have to supplement with external just to stay normal, right? Just because when you're that low, people do kill themselves because of low test, because they're depressed, they don't sleep, they don't feel like a man. That stuff really messes with your brain.
Yeah.
And she thinks that might have been part of it, but they got me all normalized and evened out. But you're right. Whenever you take that shit for a prolonged period of time, you don't even have to take it for a long time. When you come off of it and you come off of it cold turkey, your shit's gonna hit the floor.
Yeah,
and
like
it really affected.
I used to get pro bodybuilders ready for Mr. Olympia, and I'm not going to mention their names because I'm not going to get sued. But when they were on supplements, if a stiff wind blew, they were getting hard. They were ready to go knock something out.
Oh yeah.
But then they get off and there's nothing for 3-4 months. They don't even want it. They're like, I got no drive. I've got no motivation. So of course your relationships are going to suffer because you went from being the beast to being a bust, right?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I had no libido. I had no desire to eat nothing. Like I didn't want to get up. Like I'd fallen back into the, oh, woe is me, my life is over shit, right? But there was a legitimate reason because my hormones were totally screwed up. Yep. So that got all squared away.
No, I mean, like me, now. I still take supplements. I still take pre-workouts. I still take creatine. I still take my test boosters, my DHEA, but I'm just no longer taking the jab anymore. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's a tough thing, and it never gets talked about because when we're deployed, I remember when we were deployed, everybody would have all these titty magazines in their gym bag. I'd have all this protein, pre-workouts, fat burners. That was my thing. And when you no longer have that thing, because you're supposed to be jacked when you're in the military.
Yeah.
That's like the more jacked you are, the better your chance of survival is. And then when you get out, people look at you like you're weird because why are you drinking pre-workouts? Why are you drinking protein? Why are you taking test boosters? I'm like,
yeah,
that's what I'm used to.
Yeah, you don't want to look like a cupcake or chewed bubblegum in your uniform. So you got to stay, as shredded as you can. And whenever you get older, your natural hormones decrease over time. And, what's interesting is, my wife sees a lot of people in the military and former military members that require testosterone. And I think a lot of it has to do with how overdriven our adrenaline is. And it drives down our natural hormones. And it really does affect not only mentally, but, physically because of all the shit that we go through, especially over time.
But the thing is, it's easier to get a sex change than it is to get testosterone hormone therapy. It's starting to change now. But for a while, you couldn't get tests from your VA doctor. No. They're like, no. Yeah. And then you're wondering why
you have to get
pill farms,
Yeah, you got to go. I mean, you got to go through 5 or 6 different referral processes. You got to fail this and this and this before they finally give you something that you need. And well, I mean, that's just the way it is. But like you said, it's a lot better than it was, 10 years ago. But I think there is something to be said about the overdriving of our stress hormones while we're on active duty that affects us over the long term, especially with our male and female hormone production, because women go through it too.
Yeah, I mean, because when we were in the military, we would have 3 or 4 energy drinks, take a couple ibuprofen. You're all right. We just suck it up and drive on. You know what I mean? So
That's
let's
right.
talk about let's bring us up till 2003 is when you finally said, okay, enough is enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
What were some of the steps you took to reinvent and reimagine who Joshua was?
So it's interesting that you say that because it started with a simple text message that my wife sent me, right? It was about if I get emotional, I'm not gonna apologize because I am who I am. But anyway, it started with a text message. My wife sent me this clip from a movie about, you know, being the creator of your own life, so to speak. And the the I don't people might think this is cliche, but it's not. It's real life for me. So it was about the secret, the movie The Secret, about
Yep.
changing your life with your thoughts. Where you put your
Manifestation.
energy is where,
Yep.
where you
Yep.
put your thoughts is where you put your energy, right?
Yep.
And that's some Joe Dispenza stuff. But that kind of led me to my journey, right? I started. All these things are connected. All this self journey stuff is connected to me. It is because all these people know each other. They all work together. They all write these books because they figured it out, right? They figured out that all this external shit that we think is going to fill our life is bullshit, right? We're auto programmed from a very early age to believe that uh, other people's feelings are supposed to validate us as human beings, and we don't learn that everything that we need is inside of us. So I started to learn and read and read and read and read. And I read over 100 books. I don't know, it's up to 115, 116 books now because I wanted to find the answer about why are these people so much different? Why are successful people successful? Why am I the way I am? And why is most of the world the way they are? Because we buy into this bullshit that everything externally is supposed to fill our life. And when it comes down to is, it's like I can't remember where I heard it. It said something to the effect: if God wanted to hide something from us, where would He put it? And if He put it deep inside of you because you'd never look there. So when people start looking within, they find the answers of what they're supposed to be and who they're supposed to be and why they're supposed to be, and that's enough when you get those answers, because all this other stuff is bullshit.
All right. So
So
now,
that's kind of
about 6 years ago, or it's probably now, this one book changed my life. And you're probably people probably can't see it here. It's a book
I've read it.
by who? By Mr. Steven Kuhn and my
Steven
friend.
Kuhn, Unleash Your Humble Alpha.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't even have to get past the first chapter to realize if I succeed, if I fail, it's on me.
That's right.
I'm the one that has to get up every day. I'm the one that's got to act like an alpha male, but also be a humble alpha male. And that's when I started getting into the whole. I was just like you. I read the book The Secret, and then I'm like, and I Google it. I think manifestation, and then Tim Ferriss came up, Ed Milet came up, Tony Robbins came up, and I'm going, there's got to be something to this. And then I'm a Christian, I believe my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Without Him, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But even in Moses, when they were walking around for 40 years, if they didn't have that vision in front of them, they would have quit 39 years and 360 days because they had a vision. And I think, the Bible, it says, I don't remember the exact quote, but it says, and Russell Brunson says it all the time, is where there is no vision, the people die, something like that. So talk to us about how you went down into the rabbit hole of manifestation, NLP, RAS, all that good stuff.
All of it, yeah. So I prayed. Right, I'm a Christian too. I grew up. I'm a staunch believer of the Bible, and I read my Bible every day. The point is that I prayed that God would send me the answer to change my life. Right, And he did. He sent me the answer through that text message because that's where it started. And my wife's the one that sent it to me because she knew what a low place I was in. And she's like, maybe this will spark something. And it sparked a fire that would burn down the Amazon rainforest in minutes, because I am so on fire about this that I want to help change as many people's lives as I can, because it started with accountability. The first thing that I learned about myself is, hey, guess what? It's nobody's fault except yours. And it's not even your fault. It's the fact that all these thoughts created all these things and actions that got you to exactly where you're at right now, right? You got here because of what you've done, and you can get somewhere else with what you can do. So I figured out real quick, I didn't have anybody to blame but myself, and I wasn't blaming anybody anymore. I just wanted for it to be over. And I became a staunch, ferocious reader and documentary watcher and meditator, and just sitting with myself to find out what my why was. And I read the 4 Agreements, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, You Are Badass, Can't Hurt Me from Goggins. I met Steven through a conference that we weren't even supposed to go to. And that's a story all in itself. I read his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich. All these books have a similar resonating theme, that everything is up to us. And I say us as individuals to create and change our own life. And it just, whenever I figured that out, I think I cried for 3 or 4 days in pure joy. I could not stop crying because I was so happy that I didn't have to live like this anymore. And I was so grateful for everything in my life. And I stopped blaming everybody for why I was where I was at. And that's another thing. If you sit down and you write down what you're grateful for, all that negative shit goes out the window, because you can't think about negative and positive at the same time.
And I just got off a call before I was on with you with my friend. She's a psychiatrist and psychologist. And that's what I was talking about. Is when I interviewed, I hate that when I have a brain fart, but I interviewed a gentleman, and he's making, his company's $20 billion company. And they actually wrote the movie Jerry Maguire about him. And he mentioned to me that depression, anxiety, and gratitude cannot exist in the same space. It's impossible.
They absolutely cannot.
It's physically and mentally impossible. And so what I do in my wallet, I actually have a gratitude list, where if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling depressed, I take out my gratitude list, and I'm like, okay, whatever's going on, I still got a beautiful bride. I still got a beautiful children.
I write it.
Yeah.
Every day. It's part of my morning routine.
And I write my goals down every single day. Now, this is something I wanted to talk about, is because me and you are both gratitude guys. I can feel that now.
Big time.
And like before I go to bed at night, and I teach this all my students, I reach around and put my arm around my wife, and I pray for her. I pray for her happiness. I pray for her health. Pray that she knows that I love her. And then I'll pick 3 things that happened during my day that I'm grateful for that happened that day. And this interview is going to be in the 3. And then I just say, Lord, thank you. How many people died today? And you kept me here for a reason. And then when I wake up in the morning, because I lost 80% of my vision, if I could see something, I literally sit up in bed, and I say, Lord, thank you. Today's going to be amazing. No matter what it is, it's going to be awesome. So I think if you go to bed with gratitude and you wake up with gratitude, I think your whole day goes a lot better if you're waking up with gratitude instead of just switching on your phone, turning on Fox News or CNN as soon as you get up, and then you're pissed off for the rest of the day.
Yeah. So let's just take two things that I said about what I do in my morning routine, right? I meditate and I write what I'm thankful for. I don't look at anything stimulating on my phone whatsoever except to start my music, to start my meditation, right? If you start your day right, you're going to end your day right. And it's not easy to start doing it, right? The first time I sat down to meditate, I couldn't last longer than 60 seconds. I'm like, I can't do this shit. I'm like, I can't sit here. And now I don't even know. I meditate until I'm done. I don't even time it anymore. Sometimes it's 15 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour and 15 minutes. It just is what it is. But it's how you start. And it goes back to, make your bed. Just like Admiral McCraven wrote, you start your day right, you're going to end your day right. You got to kick it off. You can't start with stress. You can't start with negativity. You can't start with all this shit that your life used to be, because if you continue to live your life like you used to, you're going to create that past in your present over and over and over again. So if you want to change something, if you want to change your life, you got to change what you do. And if you don't do that, your life's not going to change, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if people want to continue to live their life like that, they're not going to change. But if they want to change, they can. And that's what I was tired. I was sick and tired of being the same miserable person that I had been for 42 years and 6 months. I'm like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm ready to level up and level up and level up.
And
whenever I found go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking, because I hear a lot of, I love it when you're talking about that, because I have my friend Jon McCaskill on here, Navy SEAL, frogman, and he's like, Rich, you need to meditate. I'm like, bro, I don't have an hour to sit there on the floor
you
going.
Don't need an hour.
Sit on the floor going, He's like, bro,
no.
He says, take 5 minutes, just go sit on the couch, quietness, and just sit there for even if it's 2 minutes. That if you even just have 5 minutes a piece a day with no distractions, your life is going to be so much better. So, a lot of people think it's got to be all woo-woo. No, even in the Bible, it says, just be quiet and listen for that small voice.
It does not. There are so many different types of meditation. But here's the great thing about meditation, right? You go from a beta state, right, that we're in all the time with this high stem, our eyes are open, we're operating at over 20 cycles per second, and you bring yourself down into into alpha, and you start to move from conscious to unconscious, and you unlock that door, and you can start changing your programming, right? You can start changing all that shit you've been taught all your life. And at first, it was like, I'm like, this can't happen. I'm like, I am who I am. I'm never going to change. Well, that, thank God, was not a true statement. So I am a firm believer in meditation.
But I also think, because let's talk about mentorship. I also believe in the 5, that you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with, whether that's physically
absolutely true,
or reading or listening to, because your mind doesn't know the difference if somebody's sitting, you're listening to a podcast, or if they're actually physically right there. Your mind doesn't know the difference. So I hear a lot of people, I can't afford to sit in front of a Robert Kiyosaki or Sharon Lecter, but you can afford to listen to a podcast with them, or follow them
read
on
their book,
their, YouTube channel, or buy the Humble Alpha. If you want to change your circumstances, if you want to be a guy that don't cheat on your wife, you can't hang out with the guys that are cheating on their wives.
That's right.
It's impossible, right? So talk about how important mentorship is.
I'm glad you're right. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I don't know these human beings personally, these great men and women that have written all these books, but they are part of my inner circle unknowingly by the greatness that they did by writing these books and teaching me that there is a different way. So like I said, like you said, I didn't have thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars to go hire these coaches, but I could go buy their audiobook for $12, or I could go buy their paperback for $10, or go watch the podcast for free that they do, like Lewis Howes and, you know, all these great people that do great things on YouTube. You have to change your input if you want to change your output. And that was so big for me, because I was watching the news. I was on social media 12 to 14 hours. I mean, you just mindlessly scroll this bullshit, and then it's all about as fake as it can be. And materialism, body image stuff. Look at all the stuff that I have. Well, at the end of the day, you still got a big hole inside yourself. So whenever I started changing the input into my mind, my mind started to change. And like you said, I surrounded myself with the most reputable and sought after self-help gurus, or whatever you want to call them, in the world. Jack Canfield, Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, all these great people that want to help as many humans as they can. I just immersed myself in everything that they had.
Yeah. Oh, and the gentleman's name was David Meltzer. I couldn't remember his name earlier, but that's so. But all right, let's talk about Steven Eugene Kuhn, because tell you the truth,
sir.
I could not stand Steven Kuhn. Me and him, we butted heads, and it was mostly my fault. I mean, he could be an asshole sometimes, but I could say that he's a dumbass tanker like me. But because I used to watch him, and I was like, damn, he's so successful, and he would give advice, and I would never take it. So we actually went nose to nose at Mick in Mick DC a couple years ago, and we had it out, not physically, and he's like, "Can I tell you? Be honest with you." I'm like, "If you can get me where you're at, I want you to be as honest as you can get." He's like,
bring it.
He said, "Nobody knows who the fuck you are." He says,
Yeah.
you're the GNC guy, you're the supplement guy, you're the fitness guy, you're the podcast guy, but nobody knows you for one thing. And that one sentence changed my whole world. And without Lane Malone and Steven Eugene Kuhn, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But it took tough love for him to say, nobody knows who the fuck you are, because you're not focusing. You're not following one course until successful. You're all over the place. So nobody's going to know who you are. So, talk about Steven Kuhn, and, not just as a friend, because he's a friend of mine, but also as a business leader that he is. And now he's got a beautiful bride, and they're traveling everywhere, doing great things. So talk about Steven Kuhn and why, because, and guys, if you're veterans out there, I'm sorry if I piss you off, but veterans are cheap as fuck.
We're lazy too. We're lazy and cheap.
We won't think twice about buying a $1,500 iPhone, but we'll think twice about hiring a mentor for $1,500 that can make us $150,000. So talk about how sometimes, I think Russell Brunson said it in his book, The Trilogy, the people that pay attention.
That's right.
So talk about how important having mentors, and sometimes if you want to level up, you're going to have to hire the mentors. So talk about how important that is.
So interesting. Like I said before, me and my wife weren't even supposed to go to this conference that was in Tampa back in April. We had concert tickets to go see an artist. I don't know if I can say on here. Does it matter if I can say the artist?
No,
it was Kenny Chesney. we were going to see Kenny Chesney and Zach Brown band.
I love Zach Brown. I'm a big Zach Brown guy.
And what happened was we double booked this weekend. I didn't even know it, right? Because Deion Sanders was supposed to be there. I wanted to go see him talk. And I booked the conference not knowing that the concert was the same weekend, which is interesting because we were going to go to Tampa anyway. And Steven's at this conference, and I see him, right? This is the first 15 minutes that we're at the conference. And I looked at my wife. I was like, that guy is somebody. He's somebody important. And I don't know who he is because, Steven, he puts off a presence when he walks in a room. He just does.
Plus he's like 6'9" and good looking. So
yeah,
he's 6'3".
He's 6'3". He's 50 plus. I'm not air his age out on TV, but he don't look his age. He's super fit, and he holds himself in a regard that is important, right? People look at Steven.
He dressed as sharp. He dressed in the nines.
But something about him resonated with me. I connected with him as soon as he walked in the room. And they come up on stage, and he starts telling the story. I'm like, holy shit. Anyway, I'm not somebody that hides my emotions, and I never will. I looked at my wife, and he's telling his story about PTSD and everything that happened to him in the Army, and I'm just like rolling down my face. I said, I told you I connected with this guy, and I didn't even know who he was. And very similar story. Not exactly, he had some more tragic things happen to him than I ever have. But I connected with him on a level that I've never connected with anybody before that. And whenever he was done speaking, we walked out, and me and my wife were standing at a table, and she's like, he's right there. You need to go talk to him. And I'm still like torn up about like how connected and the synchronicity that I felt whenever he was speaking. So I went over and started talking to him, and we just struck up friendship instantly. And, he's been my mentor, great friend. Ever since then, I've talked to him, I think, if not on text, on phone, almost every single day since April the 20th when I met him. And my life's never been the same. I mean, my life was already changed, but he's one of those people that you really value in your life because he brings more value to us. And what happened, right? I was pissed at him. Like the second time we ever talked, he's like, Josh, so what are you trying to get out of your business? What do you want to do? I was like, I want to be a life coach. I want to teach people all the stuff that I've learned. And he started doing the Dean Graziosi why thing.
The 7 why, baby. The 7
why?
Yep.
And finally, I get pissed and I hit the steering wheel because somebody did it for me. And I'm just red beat in the face, and there's tears rolling down my face. And and he starts laughing. He said, there it is. He said, that's what people connect with. And when he did that, I was pissed at him in the moment. And then I don't think I could love him anymore in the same moment when he brought me to why I wanted to be what I am now. And he's like, you want to do this because somebody did it for you. So yeah, he's a special guy. Like you said, he can be an asshole, but he pulls out of you. He's one of those people that can pull the best out of you at your worst point. So,
and I just had to be humble enough to say, give it to me, hit me with your best shot. If and the funny thing is I used to get so pissed off when he would take videos of him and his wife on the beach, and here I am. I just got back from the Bahamas. I'm sitting there taking videos with my wife on the beach, living the good life, and I'm going, there it is. I'm just doing what I've been taught. So, and I love Steven. I love Lane Balone. And they're still friends of mine. And without them, we wouldn't be together. We wouldn't be talking together right now. So, Steven, I hate you sometimes. I love you sometimes. It depends on the day. but I love you and thank you so much for everything you're doing. So now, what's going on? Because sometimes once that mind shift, once it switches, it moves at like hyper speed. Like you could go from being one way in 1 week and being in a total different area in your life the next week. So talk to us about what's going on now from April till July.
So in April, I was working for a pretty reputable company as a pharmaceutical rep. We go to this conference. What else happened is I met my business partner, David, at the same conference. The first probably 20 minutes we were there, we just connected kind of the same way that me and Steven did, but not on such a mentor-mentee level, more of a like, hey, this guy is a lot like me in that kind of way. And we met there and we started our company that Monday, right? He already had a digital marketing company. And I told him what my vision was, is to help as many people as I could, move from where they're at in their life to where we are, right? Because he's been on a similar journey. And we started a Uniform Strategies Alliance that Monday. And we kind of merged both companies together. They're both separate, but we together do them together. So we do digital marketing and then we do the coaching. And I didn't know how to be a coach. I just wanted to help people, right? I'm like, I don't know how to do this shit, but I know I can talk to people about where I was and where I am now and what we can do to get them there. And eliminating all those limiting beliefs that pull us down to where we're at and create this program in the back of our head. So I created a coaching program called Alpha Ascend. Alpha Ascend, the Humble Alpha, read the Humble Alpha. Me and Steven talked about, creating a program to get people to their ultimate alpha. And that is, you don't have to be a man to be an alpha. Anybody can be an alpha. It's being the keeper and creator of your own life. That's what it means to me. So that's kind of it's been on a rocket, like to the stratosphere kind of trajectory. I quit my job like a week later, and I've been doing this ever since. And I've never been more free and happy in my life because I'm doing what I want to do. I found my why and what I want to do with my life. And when people find out their why they're here, why you're on planet Earth, and then how you can help other people with your why, that changes your life overnight, completely.
All right, so let's talk about entrepreneurship for the next couple of minutes. One of my great friends is Brian Cuban. His brother owns the Mavericks, or used to own the Mavericks. I think he's still a part owner.
Yeah.
But something that Mark always talks about is, if you're not invested in your business, I'm not going to be invested in your business. And for me, I found, even like Russell, when I talked to Brunson, something that he said to me, he was like, I can give away 1,000 free tickets, and not one of that 1,000 free tickets I ever gave away ever did anything. But almost everybody that invested in the courses did something with it. And I think if you don't have, and even Steven will say, if you don't have any skin in the game, then you're not going to do the work. Like if you give me and I've been married for 15 years, so I know, if you give me a free gym membership and I don't go anymore, and I won't go. If it's free, I'm not going to go. But if you
what's
give
the
me
value?
But if I'm paying to go to the gym and my wife sees that it's coming out of the checkbook every month, and I'm not going, she's going to be like, listen, fat ass, either you go to the gym or you quit. So now, and when I tell people, if you want me to coach you, I am not the cheapest coach out there, but I guarantee results. If you want cheap, I'm not your coach. I'm not the guy. But if you want results, you can hire me. So what is it because I know veterans, like you said, were cheap as fuck. When you're like, well, why would I hire you if I can watch a video? So talk to us about that, about having how the importance of having a coach that's going to be on your ass. I know Steven's going to be on your ass. If he's mentoring you,
Oh, yeah.
he's going to be like watching what you're doing. Remember, I told you to do this. Why didn't you do this?
Yeah. He's like, why aren't, like, this is a weekend. He's like, why aren't you sending me messages and asking me questions on the WhatsApp? I'm like, what? Okay. You got me. He's like, he's holding me accountable. And that's what a great coach does. And I'm not your atypical, I'm not a sunshine and rainbows person. I'm going to tell you, this shit's hard and it's not easy. And if I'm not your bag of candy or tea or a cup of tea, whatever you want to call it, then I'm not. But there's somebody out there that I can help. And I am going to hold you accountable. And I am going to give you shit to do. And I am going to make you make yourself better. Because if we don't do that, if there's no accountability, then what's the use? Why would you hire me if you don't want me to kick your ass and make you the best version of yourself? You're going to do that a lot on your own, but somebody fostered me through the process. So that's my mission in life, is to foster others through the process. And like you said, there's free information everywhere, but what's the value? If it's free, what's the value? And I'm not the cheapest coach out there either, but I guarantee you that there's going to be value provided. Weekly Zoom calls that are recorded, WhatsApp, contact me anytime. You're going to have a brotherhood of a brother and sisterhood of like-minded people that can, pull you into the community. And that's a lot of what people struggle with, is they have no community. They have no identification. So I think a lot of it has to do with mentorship. And what do you want out of your mentorship? What do you want to get out of it? And for me, I'm somebody that wants to be pushed hard and pulled sometimes if I have to be. And that's the kind of people I want to coach.
So then why start, and I just joined your Facebook group today. So why start a Facebook group?
So that's a different thing, because I do want to give back to my community of veterans. I started a Facebook group called From 22 to Zero, a warrior civilian path. So what I want to do more than anything is eradicate veteran suicide. I've had multiple friends and shipmates over the past 8 years that have ended their life. People I've known, people I were close to, that you never would have thought that they would have done the ultimate. And I created that Facebook page as a sounding board, as a tool for veterans to go to ask questions and ask for help and get guidance in a way that they can't get it in other places. And I think it's important that we keep that community, that sense of community and brother and sisterhood that we had in the military, out as civilians, because you don't have to become a civilian when you get out of the military. You keep that warrior mentality. You're just living in a civilian world. So don't try to change who you are. Just be you in a civilian world. And a lot of it has to do with, I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. You shouldn't give a shit what anybody thinks either. Be yourself. And I want to be able to help people with that Facebook group, get the help that they need. Because
I have a question.
Just like you.
Well, somebody sent me a question. That's why I want to make sure I answer it for you. His name is Greg. Greg says, I'm about to transition out of the military in the next year. What would be your top 3 pieces of advice for somebody that's getting ready to transition out of the military for success outside of the military?
Top three pieces of advice. So my question is there a plan in place for whenever, or have you already formulated a plan for your transition from civilian to military
because
life.
he doesn't have a plan. He just knows he's getting out in a year. There is no plan.
So I think that's important. You got to have a plan from when you transition from military life to civilian life. You also have to have a support system in place. That's a huge, huge thing that we don't have, or we don't even get talked about to whenever it comes to transitioning from being a civilian to a military person, or a military to civilian. And your VA benefits, I think you need to understand what all your VA benefits are, and you need to squeeze as much blood out of that turnip as you can, because you gave everything for yourself. It's damn time for them to give everything they can for you when you get out of the service. So you have to take advantage of your support systems, make sure you have a plan, and the VA. Those are three things that are imperative that somebody does whenever they transition from civilian to military life.
And I love that. And that was one thing I took away from my meeting with Steven in DC was he told me, if you don't have a business plan, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And that was something that I took from DC. But, one thing I would add to that three would be, Greg, make sure that you go sign up for LinkedIn right now. If you're a veteran, you get LinkedIn Premium for free for 1 year. And most of the time, they don't even take it off. So, and you can take as many courses as you want for free. So make sure you join LinkedIn Premium. And I would do, because that's where I do my most damage is on LinkedIn. So
join veteran groups too. As many on like social media veteran groups as you can, because we might not have all the answers, but I guarantee you that we can find all the answers in those groups. Guaranteed. So
if you're a veteran and you want to be an entrepreneur, definitely join the Vetpreneur Tribe. I've been there since day one when there's less than 500 members. Join the Veterans Supporting Veterans. That's my group if you want to join. But something I wanted to add, I said I would give a tip. Now, I almost took myself out 2 months ago because I had a friend of mine that took his life, and I was along the same path. And what saved me was this. That's my obituary. I wrote my own obituary about the man that I want to be and how I'm dying at 100 years old with my wife and kids around me. And I had to realize that if I write my own obituary, I have to be the man that it says in that obituary. So if you ever want to find your why, write your own obituary and try to live up to be that man. So that would just be a piece of advice I'd give to anybody out there. So, brother, how can we support your mission? What can we do to help support Joshua's mission?
Well, I think, if we got veterans out there, definitely come to the From 22 to Zero page and jump in there, be active. Definitely. I want people to be active. My coaching website is alpha.uniformstrategiesalliance.org. And that's alpha.uniformstrategiesalliance.org. USA, right? USA. That's where my coaching site is. I just began my coaching career, and I also want to do public speaking too. I think that we can touch so many more lives when we can stand up there on stage and get our message out to the multitude as opposed to one-on-one, right? Because we can help so many more people than we can whenever we're just coaching people individually or even in like small groups. So hit the website. I post content every day on my Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for stuff to help people, move into the next, from one place to the next, level up, get out of that mindset. So that's another thing. People can jump on there. It's just my name, Joshua D. Danson is my Instagram, and then Joshua Danson is my TikTok, and then Josh Danson or Joshua Danson is my Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm not as active in LinkedIn as I should be. Thank you for calling me out on that, Richard. I do need to be more. I need to be more active on a business website for sure. But hit me up, DM me, message me. I make myself available to anybody that asks questions. I'm not one of these people that are too busy to answer anything because somebody answered my questions it's my responsibility to answer somebody else's questions and help us any way that I can, because that's my mission on planet Earth, is to eradicate veteran suicide and to help as many human beings change their life as possible, from unprogramming all this bullshit that we learn our entire life, finding yourself, finding all the answers within inside of ourselves, and being present and actually living our life and creating those manifestations. And there's ways that I teach that you'll learn how to do that. So I think, did I answer your question?
Yeah, well, that's normally my last question, but because it's you, I got one more.
All right.
Because you're a believer, like I'm a believer, and I believe that if you don't feel close to God, you're the one that moved. He's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. But if there's somebody out there struggling with their faith, what can they do in the next 24 hours to find some peace?
The absolutely first thing I would do is pray, because God is always listening. He's omnipotent. He's always listening. And if you have a Bible, I recommend getting in your Bible, because if you pray, your answers are going to come, especially if you pick up the Word of God and start reading it, because all the answers are in there. We just got to go find them. So pray and read your Bible. Those are two huge things. And I think that's what I would do personally.
I love it. So, hey guys, like I promised, if you pick up this book right here, my new book, #1 seller on Amazon, the whole back cover is written by my mentor, Mr. John Lee Dumas. If you pick up the book for $30, you get over $1,000 in bonuses, and I will actually do a social media blitz for your company for $30. So, guys, if you want to find out how to have a podcast that gets over now up to almost 3 million downloads, if you want to be profitable from day one, write book down below and I'll get you that information. Joshua, brother, I just want to say thank you. I'm so humbled that now I can call you brother, and hopefully we can build a generational relationship from here.
Oh yeah, you're my brother for life. Like I told you, this was a blessing, and I'm grateful for your invitation. The fact that Steven even got us together, I want to foster some relationships with people that need help out of this, and I know it will. It's going to come. We just need to help. I want to help as many people as I can, and I really appreciate you letting me use your platform to tell my story, and hopefully we can help anybody that needs help moving forward. And
I love it, guys.
You're a blessing.
I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and something that he says every morning we wake up, we have a choice. We can be a victim or we can be a victor. So if you listen to this show, you're no longer a victim of your past. You're a victor of your present and your future. So guys, thank you for always showing up. And remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. I love you guys. Joshua, my brother, have an amazing week.
Yes, sir. You too.
Be good.
I appreciate it.
I can't wait to come hang out in your group.
That's right. Come in. Come join.
I will, brother. I love you. Be good.
All right. I love you too. I appreciate it.